Today, a CDC committee recommended that COVID-19 shots be adopted as a part of the standard vaccine regimen for children. While this is not a federal mandate, individual states determine their own vaccine requirements based off of the CDC recommendations. But the question, are states inclined to adopt these recommendations? And how will this impact families and their children? And here's a bigger question. Why is the CDC ignoring the many complications reported from this experimental shot, especially in young people? Joining me now to discuss this and much more, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. She is a member of the House Armed Services Committee, the House Agricultural Committee, and as I mentioned, she is the chair of the Values Action Team. She represents Missouri's 4th Congressional District. Congresswoman Hartzler, welcome back to the program.
It's great to be here, Tony. Thanks.
As I mentioned, the CDC is not mandating this shot, but they're putting it on the list of recommended vaccines. How will states respond to this? And is it too early, based upon the evidence that's out there, to suggest that this is a shot that children should have?
Well, absolutely. I'm a former teacher, and it concerns me very, very much that they're suggesting and adding this to the list. As you point out, there are many negative health ramifications of taking the vaccines, but the fact is that most young children don't get COVID, or if they do, they have very, very minor health problems from that. It's more like a cold or the flu like they get every year. In fact, there are many more children that go into the hospital for flu than actually, passed away from COVID, and yet they're mandating this. And it's unlike the other vaccines that we all took as children, say polio or tetanus or some of these others, that have serious ramifications and paralysis and put people in wheelchairs. COVID is not in that category, and yet they want to impose this on our children. And sadly, many states do follow the CDC guidelines, even though they're guidelines. And many school districts use the CDC to base their school policies. And so especially in liberal states and liberal school districts, I expect that they're going to try to add this and mandate it and say to the parents, well, this was on the CDC list. And parents are not going to have that option anymore, or they're going to have to make these decisions about whether to take their children out of school or to do something else. So it is following the political science, not the real science, to the detriment of our children. And it's very, very concerning.
Well, you're right. Even the president, maybe it was a slip, but he said the COVID pandemic is over. Maybe common sense grabbed him for just a moment. He said that last month. But yet you have the Director General of the WHO saying, oh, yes, we see that this is still a global threat. To me, this is nothing more than bureaucrats trying to hold on to the power that they were exercising over people.
Yeah, they're trying to still be relevant. They like that power. They like that relevancy. They like people tuning in and listening to their every word during the pandemic. And now that's not the case. People are going on with their lives as they should. And so they're trying to be relevant again and retaining that power. And we have to oppose it and push back on it.
I'm going to switch gears for just a moment because we've seen post-Dobbs. We saw the media coming out talking about how Republicans were so extreme on the abortion issue. Lindsey Graham came out with a pain bill that says after 15 weeks, when we know science says a child feels pain, that should be at least a place of consensus where actually about 60% of Americans agree that there should be a line there. But the Democrats are really the ones that are extreme. I mean, you heard the clip I played of Stacey Abrams yesterday on MSNBC saying that, hey, the way we need to deal with these bad economic times, you need to have the ability to abort your children.
It's horrific. It's barbaric. It is unbelievable. I mean, she said that no woman should be forced to have an unplanned pregnancy and that is going to be the cause of the economic problems. But I want to point out, first of all, there is no unwanted, she said every unwanted pregnancy. There is no unwanted pregnancy. There are thousands of couples in America who would love to raise that child, who cannot have their own children. And how come Stacey Abrams is not touting adoption? If she thinks that babies are an economic problem, such to the extent that she thinks you ought to take the life of that unborn child, at least why don't you promote adoption? But the fact is, she's trying to tune into and trying to stimulate the fear among women to get votes. This is all about the election. And so she's trying to stoke this fear among women. But the fact is that as pro lifers, we have over 3,000 pregnancy help centers across this country to help women. There is no choice. I mean, if women are having economic problems, there is help available. These pregnancy help centers will give them free diapers, clothes, formula. They're there to help them after that baby gets there. There are people to surround them. And yes, there are government programs to provide food and housing and to help. So this is just a red herring that she is using to try to stoke fear in women to try to pull out an election. And it's wrong.
I mean, it really looks at children as if they are burdens rather than blessings from God, which Scripture makes very clear to us that they are.
Absolutely. I mean, the value of a child cannot be reduced to dollars and cents. Every child is precious. Every child has a plan and a purpose from God, and abortion snuffs out and steals away that plan and purpose, and we are all worse off because of it.
Well, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank you for your leadership on Capitol Hill. You've been leading on these issues ever since you arrived here in Congress, and we're grateful for you and for your leadership.
Thank you. It's been a blessing and honor.